Welcome to the Boone Podcast. I'm Bret Boone, and today on the program, I sit down with a Yankee legend, a three-time All-Star and a two-time World Series champion. In 1978, he was the World Series MVP, hit one of the biggest home runs in Yankee history, and I'm excited. He's sitting down with the Boone Podcast. Welcome, Bucky Dent. Bucky, thanks for coming on the program.
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. Love to talk baseball.
Okay, I've got to clear something up. When I finished playing, I did a beef jerky commercial. When I was playing, I had a buddy, John Ashton, who plays Taggart in Beverly Hills Cops. I was in San Diego, and they wanted him and the whole production crew. They were filming a movie, and I said the producer came up and he asked if he could get 12 tickets for everybody. And I said, wait a minute. I said, what am I going to get for that? I want to part in your movie. So, and I said, and I have to have a star on my trailer when I show up. I did the whole thing. I played a cop. I was a fish out of water. It was the weirdest thing I've ever done, but it was fun. I think the movie went straight to video. Okay. Pinup poster I want to know about, the Playgirl shot in the bathing suit, and you were also the love interest on a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader movie. Give me those three.
Well, the first one I did was the 78. I did the after the World Series, I did the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader movie, and I was the same way like you, fish out of water, but it was fun. I learned a lot about different things because I used to like to go and watch. I used to like to watch the people shooting scenes and stuff like that. But the poster came about after I got back. They wanted me to do a poster, and I went to the stadium that day, and there was actually they had taken all our uniforms out, and I only had shorts and a cutoff shirt, and it was about 30 degrees. So I had my sweatsuit on. So we walked out, and I said, okay, let's go. And just took it off and just started holding the bat, doing some different things. And they wound up picking the one picture that wound up becoming the poster. But I think it sold like 100,000 the first month. But the guy that owned the rights to it passed away. So it kind of got caught in limbo. So they only wound up selling like 100,000 of them. But yeah, it was quite an experience.
You played for, I played against him for a long time. Never played for the Yankees. I always thought in the back of my mind, at the end of my career, because I loved New York. There was nothing like it. And I was just kind of watch you guys from afar. We played in different eras, but I played for a real eccentric owner in the mid '90s, Marge Schott with the Cincinnati Reds, and it was. There's so many stories. It's unbelievable. But you played for the boss, Steinbrenner. Just want to know a little bit about him as a let me just tell you, as an opposing player, we would look at the New York Yankees and Steinbrenner, and you never know what he's going to do next, and say some outrageous things. As a player that played for a lot of different owners, some that wanted to win, some that didn't really care, and we're basically there to count up the rubles and make sure we're all right at the end. As a player, I don't know whether you agree with me or not, all we care about when we're in that, for a small time in our life, when we're in that room together downstairs, all we care about is winning. So I always used to sit there for the critics of Steinbrenner and say, well, I'll tell you what, as a player, I know at the end of the day, he wants to win as much as anybody out there, and he's going to do it. He's going to go to great lengths to do it. Now, what comes with that is pretty critical owner. If you're not playing well, you might be on the cover of the sports page with your owner blasting you. As a player, I didn't care. I would take that in return for, I know going into each and every year, the big boy, the guy upstairs, has got my back, and all he cares about is winning. And I can deal with all the sideshow. Give me a little bit about George Steinbrenner. You played for him. You managed under him.
Loved
you got
him.
Hired. You got fired.
I got
like
hired,
everybody does.
I loved playing for him. Like you said, he wanted to win. And I think, when you go over there, I got traded over in 77. I'd met him in 73 when I was playing with the White Sox. I was a rookie. I went to a Bulls basketball game. Never been to a basketball game before. And sitting there, and these four guys walk up in front of me, and they sit down, and the guy sitting next to me, my buddy, goes, "You know who that is?" And I go, "No." He goes, "That's the owner of the New York Yankees. He's suspended right now. You want to meet him?" I said, "Sure." So I tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around. I said, "Mr. Steinbrenner, I'm the shortstop for the White Sox, Bucky Dent." And he goes, "I've been trying to get you, kid." And I started smiling because the Yankees were my team. But as far as an owner, when I got traded over there, I think anybody that goes to New York when he was the owner understood the bottom line was it was to win. And like you said, he was going to call you out if you weren't playing well or if you weren't, doing the things that he wanted you to do. He was very passionate about the Yankees. You wore your uniform right, you cut your hair. He had rules that he wanted you to go by. But as far as winning, he was going to do everything possible to put a team on the field that was going to win, and he did. In '76 they lost, to the Big Red Machine. Then I came over there in '77. Reggie came over in '77. And we won his first championship in '77. Then we went on to win in '78. But he was a guy that you knew the ground rules when you played there. I knew when I took over to manage when I came up from AAA that the bottom line was to win. The only one thing that when I took the team, I told him, I said, "This team is not very good right now, and we're light in the minor league because I was a AAA manager. It's going to take time." But he didn't have patience. So. I wound up getting fired like everybody else, but I love playing for him. He was passionate. He was going to do everything possible to make you winners, and that's what he did. And he loved his players. Even when I retired and left and came back and managed and in the minor leagues for him and stuff like that, he took care of his players. He loved his players, and I got nothing but respect for the guy. I love playing for him.
Now, guy that was a big part of my life and my career, I always guys that come on the show all the time. There's always a story. Uh, was Lou Piniella. I played for him in Seattle, and to this day, one of my favorite men in all the game. I came up early in my career. I got a chance to play for Lou, and we couldn't be farther apart. I mean, we're going to fisticuffs. And the second time around with Lou, I was a veteran player. It was a different story, and it just I love Lou. He's the best. I haven't had too many people though. A lot of my colleagues, a lot of my peers, a lot of my teammates played for Lou, played against Lou as a manager, but I haven't had too many recounts of as a teammate. Lou is a player.
Lou is a player. I tell you what, very smart, outstanding hitter. He loved the game. Um, he was really a lot better outfielder than people give him credit for. He didn't run very fast, but he was a really good base runner. He got great jumps on balls in the outfield. He was a guy that would make you laugh because of the things that he would scream at the pitchers. And he was a fiery competitor, and that's the way he played. When he managed, I think he managed a lot like Billy Martin. I mean, he just didn't like to lose. He was a tremendous competitor and a great teammate, and I love him. And when we get together at Old Timers Day or whenever we get around and he starts telling stories, he is hilarious. I'm telling you what, he's got some of the funniest stories that I've ever heard. But a great player.
There's only one Lou. There's
There's
only
only
one.
one Lou.
There's only
I
one.
remember when we were playing you guys, and he just would make me chuckle. I'm coaching with Texas, and we're
Yeah,
going.
01.
Yeah,
01 was last year with Texas. Yeah.
yeah, we're going in 2000 and 96. 96. We're going for the pennant. We're playing you guys the last week of the season, and we go in there, and I think we had maybe a 1 or 2 game lead. And the first night we're playing, and the pitcher got in trouble in the first inning, and he sent 2 guys down to start warming up. It's almost like he had 2 guys warming up every inning, for that game. And so the next day I walked over to him and I said, "Hey," I said, "you had that bullpen going pretty quick last night." And he goes, "Let me tell you something. If I had 10 mounds, I would have had 10 pitchers warming up down there." But that's the way he was. I mean, he just didn't like to lose. And he was just a fiery competitor, and I love playing with him.
He was best. I mean, I'll tell you this. This is what I found out. I cracked him finally. The bottom line is if Lou respects you as a player
Yep.
and he respects you as a man, he will take a bullet for you. If he doesn't, man, I've seen some teammates of mine, and I've seen certain personalities throughout the years that he's dealt with. If he doesn't respect you in both in
Oh yeah.
both categories, it might be a long year for you, and you're not going to be around very long. That's how Lou was, and I tried to explain to new guys coming in. This is what you got with Skip.
Right.
And some guys were his cup of tea, some weren't. I saw a lot of young players he got rid of because of that. He didn't want any part of them. But yeah, Lou, awesome. Quick
Yeah.
rapid fire, and I want to get into your career and your travels. Just some of your teammates, because I'm a kid in the '70s. When my dad's playing for the Phillies,
Right.
and some of my fondest memories to this day, obviously I have a lot as a player, and we always, the time we played is always the best. But I'll tell you, a lot of my fondest memories are going to the ballpark as a little kid, watching the teams of the '70s. It was a different for me. It was the golden era of baseball. I mean, probably because it was my childhood, but I just loved it. And you over in New York, you had some unbelievable guys. We've had Reggie on the podcast, and he went on and on as only Reggie can do. But I just wanted to talk about a few guys. I got a story for you about Billy, and the only time I ever met Billy Martin, and it's pretty funny. But just a quick rapid fire: Thurman Munson.
Great, great, tough player. Love playing with him. I love playing with all the guys that I played with in New York. I mean, they were just baseball players. And Thurman was a great leader, a great captain. He was a guy that could sarcastically say something to you that would like catch you off guard, and it would anger you, but you knew what he was doing, like he would walk up to you, and if you were struggling a little bit, around the batting cage, and he'd look at you and go, "Are you trying?" I mean, just say things to you and break the ice. But love playing with, played hurt, tough as nails, one of the toughest guys I ever played with. But he was a great guy. I loved him.
Ron Guidry.
Oh, Gator's my man. I talk to him quite a bit, but probably one of the greatest years I've ever seen a pitcher in 1978. He was just electric, just dominant, and uh, a great guy, and one of the best lefties that I played with.
Reggie.
Reggie, I love Reggie. Reggie and I got along real well because he actually got traded out. He came over and went to spring training in '77. I got traded the last day of spring training. So I came over, and we both were kind of like in the same boat. Billy didn't care for him, and for some reason, Billy didn't care for me either, So we got along really, really well. He's a guy that, look, he was a big game player. Reggie has always been Reggie, but again, I love playing with Reggie. I mean, just enjoy playing with him.
And Billy Martin. I mean, I've had, I and I'll tell you quick. I was in Anaheim. This is when my dad was with the Angels, and I worked in the visiting clubhouse. And the Yankees came to town. I was like the ball boy down a right field line. So I was kind of there. You know how the clubhouse kids are. We're kind of at your disposal as players, and players would have me run errands for them. I'm in the back doing laundry. Billy Martin has no idea that my dad's catching for the Angels. Just thinks I'm a clubhouse kid, which I kind of liked it. That was the way I wanted to be treated. He said, "Hey, kid, come here." I said, "All right." I'm like 15.
Hmm.
Says, "I need you to go upstairs to level 3. Ask for, just for argument's sake, I'll say Julie. Tell her Billy needs his vodka." Billy Martin's town, whatever. I just want a tip.
Right.
I run up there, I get it done. I come back. You give him his vodka. Everything's. I tell Dad the story on the way home from the ballpark that night, and Dad ain't having it. He goes, "You're going to tell Billy Martin's not going to have my 15-year-old son running booze for him all over." Next day, here comes my dad, and I'm like, "Oh no, I'm going to get fired." Big, not not a fight or a dust up, but Dad gets in his face and don't you ever, and Billy's like, I didn't know that was your son, Bob, and this and
Right.
that. I thought he just works here,
Yeah.
which you know, if when we go as players, we go somewhere, we don't sit there and calculate, hey, can I see your ID so I can ask you to go give me something that you need to
Right.
be over 21? I don't really think it was Billy's fault. Just how kind of my dad was, that straight arrow, just do it by the book. And
Yeah.
that was my funny story about Billy Martin. But just anything on Billy, quick line on Billy.
Well, Billy, look, Billy was a good manager. Uh, a lot of guys liked playing for him. I played against him, when I was with the White Sox, and then I was excited to go over there and play for him. But for some reason, um, he didn't really care for me or Reggie. When Goose came over, I don't think he cared for Goose either. But he was a guy that was a good game manager, but I didn't get along with him. One of the favorite guys that I played for with the Yankees was Dick Hauser. Loved playing for Dick. Dick was a guy that was a good baseball guy. He let you play, and he didn't. If he had something to say to you, he'd come up and say to you, and he had a sarcasm way of saying it to you, but you got it. And I really enjoyed playing for him. But Billy was not one of my favorite managers I played for.
Young Bucky Dent grew up in Miami. I think you were a sixth overall pick in the draft, in the major league draft, with the White Sox. Played White Sox 73 to 76. You're an All-Star in 1975, and as you mentioned earlier, Steinbrenner, excuse me, Steinbrenner said he was trying to get you. They make the trade. Uh, you go to the Yankees. You go from Chicago White Sox, and at the time, I don't know how much was going on there, but you go. It's still a big city. You're in the city of Chicago, but there's nothing like playing in New York. How was the change for you? The expectations, like you said, George Steinbrenner expecting to win every year. Something I always loved about the Yankees, still love, and still think the world respects the Yankees is they don't rebuild in New York. It's every year you better win. Um, how was that change for you early in your career?
Well, it was easy because, like you said, I played Chicago. I went from a big city to a big city. I went from a team that we lost close to 100 games or 100 games in '76, and I went from the owner of Bill Veeck to the owner of George Steinbrenner. Um, Always wanted to be a Yankee. Growing up as a kid, loved the Yankees. Mickey Mantle was my hero. So I was just like overwhelmed with being traded to go to New York. I love the Yankees and I wanted to play there. So I was like really, really excited about going over and playing for the Yankees. So um, it was one of the best days of my life when I got traded over there because I loved them.
77 and 78. It's the more you get into it, it's a repeat, but it's not a repeat. I mean, you're going through the same channels to get to the World Series, and you got the same National League team at the World Series 2 years in a row. You go through that Royals team, who I ended up seeing up close in 1980. Dad's Phillies and the Royals hook up. That's when I really got to see the Royals because back then, uh, there was no winter league play. So you didn't really see the other league. Whatever league you followed, you kind of followed that league, and you didn't see the other league. Um, First off, how good were those Royals teams that you beat in 77 and 78?
They were really good. They had speed, they had power. They could run. They played good defense. They had a good manager. So they were a good team, a really really good team. And what you said was very interesting. Is it was American League and the National League back then, and there was always that mystique about, I played in the American League my whole career until I got a coaching job with the Cardinals in 1991. I didn't really see how the national game was played that much because playing American League, they got the DH, you don't see all the strategy. So I thought, going over there then was fascinating. But, going back to the Royals, they were really, really good. And those two teams, there's a lot of teams that didn't like each other. And one of those teams was the Royals. the Yankees and the Royals didn't really like each other. It was the same thing as the Yankees and the Red Sox, So it was always a battle with them, and they had good teams, and those games always went down to the end, and but the Yankees, they, for some reason, they had a mindset, that they just were not going to get beat. They were not going to beat you. We had guys that had been in the World Series: Reggie, Catfish, Don Gullett. We had some guys that had been through it, so they know what to expect. They got beaten 76, so now 77, was supposed to be the year we did it all. And it was that year we won, and we were expected to win. George put a big expectation, but 77 was a year also that we went through an awful lot of turmoil. The Son of Sam, all the other stuff that was going on, taking place. But the one thing about the Yankee teams that I played on, when they went between the lines, nothing affected them. There was one thing: they were going to beat you, and that's the way they played.
Going back to those, and today, for what I do, and on this side of the media, and breaking down the game then, the game now, I found that it's never been. Of course, it's important. I don't want to mislead by saying it, but it's never been less important than 162 games as it is now, because there's more playoff spots than there's ever been. Back when you were doing this, and there were 2 spots, man. There were 2 spots in each league. And so you're fighting that 162 is obviously at a premium back then. I talk about teams today, and I'm thinking, well, as long as you can just hold serve and survive through the dog days of summer, and you get that team lined up the way you want it to be, and you're a good team and finish strong, you're going to have a playoff spot. Because nowadays, that's what it's all about. It's obviously nice to have home field advantage, this and that. But I think what's proving in modern times is the teams that kind of sneak in, get in last. I think the Phillies of a year ago, they grabbed that wild card spot. Next thing you know, they're 2 games away from winning the World Series. And teams like the Dodgers of a year ago win 111 games, clearly the best team in baseball, and they get knocked out by the San Diego Padres because they kind of just coasted. I played on a team like that where start to finish, there was nobody ever even close to us, and we get to playoff time. Next thing you know, we're going home. Do you like I think from a fan standpoint, I try to break it down from both, as a player standpoint and as a fan standpoint. It's very exciting. You keep many more cities are in the hunt late in the year. Obviously, that's why they do it. It's kind of an NBA format. But once you get to the postseason, man, you got a lot of landmines to go through. You got to win 4 series to win the World Series. Playing in that generation, coaching, managing in a more recent generation, which do you prefer? The long format and the big, a lot of playoff spots, or the way when you played the way it was, where you got to fight for that one spot?
I like the way when I played, because you had to win. It came down, like in 78, it came down to the last day of the season. We tie with the Red Sox. So you go and you play a 1-game playoff, which the whole world is watching, because it's 1 game, it's New York, it's Boston. And that's the most pressured game I ever played in my whole career. They're adding more teams because of money. They're trying to keep cities, but I don't like it with the fact that a team can try and win the division all year long, and then you got a 5th place team, like you said, that sneaks in because they get into a wild card and they knock that team off because they get hot. And I just don't think that that's right. If you want to have 2 teams, the top 2 teams, and a wild card like they had a few years ago, that's different, But I can't even imagine back when we were playing, like in 77 or 78, Red Sox, Yankees, we won 100, they won 99. Baltimore was always good. So now you take them and you take Kansas City, and then you take all those teams and you put them in a round robin. You never know what's going to happen. So that, winning division was so important. And you know, to go through the division playing with those against those teams, and you finally win the division, you go, "Phew, man." But now, I mean, teams are just scuffling just to get in the playoffs, and I just think it's diminished the winning of the division because who really cares as long as you get in, like you said, who really cares? And I think that's taken away a little bit, but the fans want it, and that's what they ask for. But as far as what I would like, I'd liked it the way it was, where when we played.
77, you beat a good Dodgers team, win your first World Series. 78, expectations in spring training?
Oh yeah, high
Do it
expectations.
again. You better do it again.
Better do it again. George says, that's last year. Let's go. We need to do it again. But like you said, the Dodgers were really, really good baseball team. The Phillies, in 1980, we won 103 games and got beat in the playoffs by Kansas City. And, then Dick Hauser wound up getting fired after he won 103 games. But, you're talking about in the 70s and 80s, the Dodgers, the Royals, the Red Sox, the Baltimore Orioles, the Phillies. I mean, we were dreaming of the matchup in 1980 of playing against the Phillies in the playoffs. It would have been really special because I was a fan of a lot of those guys that played on that team, so it would have been a really interesting playoff. But, we wound up getting beat. We got knocked out. Kansas City finally beat us.
It was an interesting year in 1978, the way it ended with that one game playoff. And I went back and watched it before you came on the show. You foul. All right, so let me set it up. So we finished the Yankees and the Red Sox finish in a tie. We got that one game playoff. You're at Fenway Park, and it's your at bat that kind of changed things because at that time they still had never won. 04 they end up winning, a little bit different now in Boston, but back then it was. And you lived the rivalry. You know better than anybody how much animosity there was between the two cities. And for me as a player, I think it's awesome because it's the most. I don't know. Everybody just cares so much about it. And as an athlete, I don't think you could pick a better scenario. But it's the seventh inning. You come to the dish. You foul one off your foot. And I mean, that it seemed. I'm watching the video. I'm going, I forgot about him fouling the ball off. I mean, it's like it seemed like it was a half hour in between pitches. You got the trader out, and I'm sure he's got that freezer spray that we spray on it just to get through the AB. Take me through that AB.
Well, what had happened, is I had fouled the ball off in spring training, and I got a big blood clot just below my kneecap, and they wound up having to cut it out. So actually, if I would have patented the shin guard that I was wearing, I would have been a skillionaire today. But I had a bootleg shin guard. I took a little league shin guard and I cut it off, and I wore a foam pad over because it didn't go up high enough. I put it over where I had the blood clot. But one game playoff, I said, I'm not going to wear it today. Heck with it. Forget it. I'm just going to play without it. And so when I came up to bat, I fouled a ball off my leg, and I was like, oh my God, we only had 24 players that day. Randolph was hurt. So I knew I had to play because he had just pinch hit for Brian Doyle. And I said, I got to play. So I'm in the on deck circle. They're spraying it. Mike Torres didn't throw any warm up pitches the whole time that I was back. He was just standing there. He thought it wasn't going to take as much time. So what happened was, as I was walking back to the plate, Mickey Rivers goes, hey, homie, you got the wrong bat. That one's cracked. Now, I really wasn't paying attention to him. He gave the bat boy, and the bat boy came up to me, gave me the bat. So when I got back in the batter's box, Mike hadn't thrown any warm-up pitches, and he had been trying to run that sinker in on me all day and throw sliders away. So when I got back in the box, I thought maybe he'd try and run a ball back in on me, and he did. And he missed his location. He got a ball down and in. I was a pretty good low ball hitter. So I golfed it, but I didn't know if it was going to go out. I didn't know if it was going to get over the fence, if it was high enough. But I started running hard to try and get to second. And when I rounded first, I saw they had signaled for a home run. And I saw Yastrzemski's knees buckled at the wall. So I knew it had gone out. But I didn't know it was a home run until I rounded first base. But, you know, you're talking about the Red Sox Yankees. Back then, the games, the rivalries, each game was like intense. Those teams did not like each other. And when I came over in 77, my first series against Boston, I experienced it, what, they had been talking about. You could feel the electricity. You could feel those teams fought each other. Munson didn't like, Fisk. Pinella hated everybody. Greg Nettles, broke Bill Lee's shoulder a few years ago in a big fight. So the tension, and then of course the city of Boston never win, and Yankees always winning. There was always that electricity in the air in the crowds, and they used to throw batteries and all kind of stuff. Mickey Rivers used to wear a hard hat in center field because they'd throw batteries at him in center field. So it was but it was fun. You could feel it, but it was fun.
It is amazing because that's still too where it's like the Red Sox finally think we got them. We're going to beat them. You break their heart. You hit the 3-run homer to take the lead. You end up winning the game. Go on as a repeat. You beat Kansas City, a good team. Beat a great Dodger team. The Dodger teams of that time were kind of epic teams. You go on to beat them. Any you go on to be the MVP of the World Series that year, 1978, and I wrote it down. I think you hit over 400 and you drove in 7 runs in that series. Um, First, I want to ask you was any difference between the two, 77, 78? Obviously, when you have a great series, you're getting the hardware. Maybe that adds something a little bit special. But team wise, was there a difference from 77 to 78? Were they equally as sweet?
They were basically, we're playing the same team, and we had pretty much the same team. We started out, we lost the first 2 games in LA. And I'll never forget, we're on the flight back, and Thurman's joking around and this and that. And he goes, look, they didn't pick us to win the division. They didn't pick us to beat Boston in 1-game playoffs. They didn't pick us to beat Kansas City. So we lost the first 2. Guidry's pitching Friday night. He's going to beat him. We're going to go on and win this World Series. And that's what happened. Guidry pitched Friday night, and Nettles put on a display at third base. I mean, defensive display. He made some unbelievable, great plays. And we wound up beating him. And then Reggie, if you remember, he threw his hip out in 1 game and let the ball hit him.
Yeah.
And it caused
First
a bunch
base.
of chaos, Well, we went on to beat them 4 straight after that. We beat them 3 at home, went back to LA and beat them the final game. But, I thought, I was really surprised that I won the most valuable player. I mean, I was elated. It was something that was, pretty special to me. But I thought Brian Doyle had a great series. Munson had a great series. Nettles had a great series. So any one of those guys could have won it, So, but as far as the games, you just don't forget those games. You look back on them, and you look and you see the great Dodger teams that they had. And of course, then in 1981, I missed the 81 World Series because I was hurt. But they wound up coming back and beating us. We won the first 2 in LA, and they wound up beating us 4 straight. So they kind of got their revenge on us.
How does life change for you after that?
Well, I think life changed after I hit the home run.
Right.
That was a game that everybody was watching. It was a Jewish holiday. Everybody was home. Everybody remembers today. I get the Red Sox fans, they say, "Oh, I hate you." The Yankee fans go, "I remember that. We love you." We were home from football practice, or we skipped school. Everybody kind of knew that. And after it was all over with, one of my dearest friends called me on the phone and said, he said, "Let me say something. That home run is going to change your life." I didn't know what he meant. I said, "Really?" And he goes, "It's going to change your life." And it did, because, it was, I always say sports is a game of moments. And that moment was a big one in history. And people remember it because of Yankee Red Sox.
Yeah, it was Bucky effing Dent. I'll
Yep,
tell you how and obviously you and my brother Aaron have something in common.
absolutely.
Hit 2 of the biggest home runs in the history of and it's Aaron effing Boone now. but I always knew where it started. It started with Bucky F and Dent, and now it's Aaron F and Boone. I was in the booth when Aaron hit the home run. MLB was trying a new third man in the booth. It's 2003. I just finished with my Mariners, and we have a great year, but we don't make the playoffs. So Fox calls me and wants me to do the. I don't want to do it, but they convinced me. They pay me enough that all right, I'll get to watch my brother play in the playoffs. He's having a terrible series, and I remember talking to him about it before that game because he was so worried about how, and I'm trying to give him the big brother. Hey, I've been there. I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you suck. He does it in a pinch hit role, and that's all I thought about. I remember being in the booth. Wakefield's on the mound, and I'm thinking to myself, well, he can't hit the conventional hitter pitchers right now. Maybe this wiffle ball game with the knuckleball do him so good. He hits the home run, and I remember just kind of being overwhelmed. I thought about your homer, and everybody knew about that homer. I said, that it's exactly what I thought. That's going to change Aaron's life right there.
Mm-hmm.
A kid that just got over. He was a deadline trade. Was having a rough series, just hit one of the biggest homers in the history of the game. And how cool it was, and how my life changes. People started telling me, "Oh, you're Aaron Boone's brother," and Aaron was always my brother until that point. But it
Right.
was really cool, you know, being there for a sibling, and I was so happy for him because not too many of you guys out there have those moments. Like you said, it was history. It was defining in the history of sports. Uh, there's a handful of you in sports throughout all the major sports that have had a moment that big, and it was pretty cool. It was
Oh, yeah.
pretty cool to watch.
I was watching that game, and it was kind of funny when it went into extra innings. I said, somebody with a bee's got to hit a home run to keep the bees going, Babe, Bucky, and Bernie, somebody. And then I didn't get out of my mouth, and your brother hit the home run, and it was, um, in the stadium. I still remember it was like electric, when he hit the home run. And that's the thing about Yankee Stadium was playing there, the crowds were always electric. And the first World Series and Game 6 when Reggie hit the 3 home runs, it felt like the stadium was just going to fall down because it was so electric.
I tell people that to this day. Yeah, I'm sure you're asked all the time, what are some of your favorite venues? Always for me, old Yankee Stadium. I remember going into the new stadium for the first time. I've never played in the new stadium, but I was there to just watch a game. And some of the guys that were working there when I was still playing, they're still working there, in the tunnels. And I'd see a couple of old friends and say, what do you think? Just give me one answer. Old or new? They just kind of both they rolled their eyes like, are you kidding me? Is that even a question? The old stadium. There was something special about that. I played some big games in old Yankee Stadium. I never came out on top. Some disappointing big games. But when you went out to that line to get loose before the game, something about old Yankee Stadium, you knew you were somewhere special.
Oh, yeah. I missed the old one. I got called up in 73, and they had just come off a trip from New York and Boston. So when I joined the club, we went to Milwaukee. So I missed the old one and then when I got, the next year we played in Shea Stadium for 2 years, 74, 75. And then we went to the stadium that got refurbished in 76. But that was the first time that I had got to play in Yankee Stadium. And it was just great memories, but playing there, you know, it's totally different ballpark than the one now. I mean, the dimensions were huge. You hit a ball in left center field in the old Yankee Stadium, you're out. I mean, unless you just absolutely crush it. And I remember we're playing New York in '96 when we won the division, and we went to New York to play. And I'm sitting there. Dean Palmer had just hit a home run, kind of like almost uh, straightaway center, but they had moved the fences in then. And
Right.
so I was joking with Dino because I could get on him, and he was a tough guy, and he sat down next to me. I looked at him. I go, Dino, did you get all that ball? Because Bernie Williams jumped up, and just missed it and went over. And he goes, yeah. I go, you see that wall behind the one that you just hit that home run on? I said, that's where you used to have to hit it when I played there. And he kind of looked at me and he kind of like went, like, but I said, yeah, that's how far you had to hit it when I played here. But the stadium was just electric. I love the old stadium.
Talk a little bit more about that Red Sox Yankees rivalry. I I watched it as a player in the late '90s when the Yankees were winning all the championships, early 2000s. It seems like every Monday night baseball was Yankees Red Sox. It's all it was. Heated, big time. I never got the teams I played for. I played for the Reds and the Braves and the Seattle Mariners. We kind of tried to like force a rivalry with somebody, but it never. I thought it never really took. And I'd look at maybe a Dodger San Francisco Giants. They got a pretty big rivalry in the National League, but nothing to me like Yankee Red Sox. Um, Broke the curse in 2004 when they came back down 3 to the Yankees. They ended up winning the World Series, and finally it wasn't. But to this day, and I talk to people, oh, we hate your brother, Boston.
Yeah.
Do you really hate him? Or are you just a fan that likes to say that because you're talking to me? I think before 2004, especially, when people did you feel when you went to Boston that you were really hated, or was it kind of I don't know, almost a way of flattery because you hit such a big home run?
Well, I think at the beginning it was like, I hate you, but then as the years went on, it became more of a love, hate, respect type thing, and that's when you start hearing all the stories, you broke my childhood life, I threw my window out the TV, or TV out the window. And, but, the first couple years, yeah, I could probably say, that, I wasn't very welcome there. But then as time went on, it kind of wore. And then of course 2004, when they won, it kind of took a little bit of the edge off.
If you go to Boston to this day and they find out Bucky Dent's in the restaurant, how are you treated?
Pretty good. They actually,
Yeah.
my wife and I went back there a few years ago to do a story on the 25th anniversary of, or 30th, one of those anniversaries. And actually, they were very, very kind. They were very good. The ownership, they were doing a story for Yankee Magazine. So they let us down on the field. We went out to the Monster. We sat on the Monster, and they were very, very kind, very, very respectful.
To this day, you keep up with the Yankees?
Oh yeah. Well, I go to New
Do
York.
you?
Matter of fact, my wife and I are leaving to go there tomorrow. We still do. I still do a lot of corporate stuff with them, and we go back up usually, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a year, and catch them playing, stuff like that. We actually, was interesting is last year we went back to Boston, and Mike Torres went back with us. Um, and Mike and I become really good friends over the years. We do a lot of stuff together, and
Yeah,
but it was
you're kind of bonded.
yeah, we're kind of like Bobby Thompson, Ralph Branca, and so we went back last year, and it was the first time that he had been back in like 40 something years since he left, and um, it was interesting to see his reaction and stuff like that. They'd never invited him back for anything, and I was like, wow, I mean, you're part of Red Sox history too, but it was kind of interesting to see how, you know, he took it all in, being back for the first time after that long. And but Mike, I love Mike. He was a great pitcher for us in '77. He was on the mound in Game 6 when we won the final game, after Reggie hit the 3 home runs. Great pitcher, tremendous competitor, and we still do a lot of stuff together as friends.
Yeah, and you mentioned New York. New York still does a great job. I think every franchise should take on the model of a Yankee type or a St. Louis Cardinals. The Phillies do a really nice job with having you guys back, having the alumni come and be a big part of the organization. I just think it's so important, to be able to bring a father, son, grandpa, and come and have the grandpa go, kid, see that guy down there when I was a kid growing up, what he did, and then you've got the current Aaron Judge for the kid today. That's his hero.
That's right.
I think they do such a nice job, and I think everybody should do that. There's nothing I can think better for the game than having the players that are a big part of for each franchise's history really stay active within the organization. So,
I just think,
Bucky, go
you
ahead.
know, I old timers is that great event for the Yankees. It's
Right,
always great to go back to old timers. I remember when I played there, the old timers would come back, and it would be Roger Maris and Mantle and DiMaggio and all those guys. And it was so fun to talk to them, because we followed them as kids. Um, and, I just, like when we go back for old timers, sometimes I don't know if the kids really know who we are, as
right.
players. They know some of us, but I don't know if they know all the history like when we followed them when we were kids, when we followed all the great players, you knew who they were. And that's why, like back when I played in making my first All-Star game, going to Milwaukee to play in my first All-Star game, I'm playing against, Hank Aaron and all these great stars from the National League that you really don't play against unless you play in the playoffs or the World Series against them, or you play against them in spring training. Not all of them play in spring training, but that was like a mystique back then, and I thought it was something really, really special. And the All-Star game was really neat, to play in, because you're playing against the best in the National League and the best in the American League. And it was really, you always wanted to win. Of course, I never won one. We got lost all three when I played, but it was still that mystique, that was really neat.
And I look at it too. Back when you played, that All Star game was a big deal. I mean, it wasn't just mail it in; it's an exhibition here. It
Mm-mm.
was we want to kick your ass,
Hmm.
and
And you
you know,
played.
but I do understand the modern day
I
with
do.
the finances out there. I understand it's an exhibition put on, but believe me, when asked about, when my All Star games I went to, I said yes. I went into it with, of course, I want to win. Of course, I want to do well. As players, we're wired that way. It's like if we're going to play a wiffle ball game, we want to get 3 hits in the wiffle ball game. That's just
Mhm.
uh, the competitor in us. But I'll have to admit, in my day, it wasn't the absolute premium. It was getting through, giving the fans a good show. Hopefully, we win the game, and I got to get it back to my team and give them the best second half I can give them. But from a fan standpoint, that's why I liked your generation
Yeah.
because man, Dad's going to the All Star game and we got to win tonight, and it was serious. They were
Oh
not
yeah.
messing around. It wasn't a tip of the cap and hey, it was no, we're here to win. It was
That's it.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think the game was a little bit tougher back when we played. I mean, breaking up, guys coming down, break up double plays. They try to kill you. I mean, you had to really learn how to get the heck out of the way.
Without a
So
doubt.
it was a little bit of a tougher game. I always tell people, they always say, "Who are the guys that knew?" I said, Reggie Jackson, I knew, Don Baylor, Kirk Gibson.
Yeah, Gibby
Those
will
guys
come get you.
when they're on first base, they were coming down there to get you, to take you out. So it was a little bit different.
And when I'm asked that question, that's the one thing because I kind of ebb and flow. I understand life goes on, generations go on. There's going to be changes, some for the
Yes.
good, some that I don't necessarily love. But that's the one rule that kind of gets me.
Hmm.
It's like, how can you take away the way the game's been? You have to slide directly into the bag. That's the way us as second basemen, that's how we separate ourselves. That's how you separate good from great,
Hmm.
from a regular player to a Gold Glove type of player. It's like the routine ground ball for us at second, not that big of a deal. It's that when that game's on the line, that runner's barreling in on us, and we got to turn that big double play.
Hmm.
That's what separates a great second baseman from a good second baseman nowadays with this rule, and why it bothers me so much. A left fielder could come in and turn a double play. When
Hmm.
you got to stand on the base, they can't hurt you, they can't flip you. It's not a big deal. So that's one of the rules I wish was never changed because I think it added such a dynamic and especially to our position.
Well, the teaching aspect, you had to learn how to get out of the way. You had to learn how to get your feet off the ground. You had to learn, who was over there going to come down hard on you, was going to try and roll block you. I couldn't stand people rolling at me, but I could slide all it want hard at me, but I didn't like people rolling. But, you had to teach. And, as a teacher, when I was, a coach, we had to learn how to teach guys to get out of the way and,
Mhm.
protect themselves around the bag and stuff. And those are just a little bit of lost art, I think, because the game has changed.
It's funny too. You talk about teaching because, yeah, you teach it. It's always a left foot touch. It's boom. You got to get up in the air. People, I worked for Oakland for a couple years in the minor leagues. Really enjoyed working with young players, and we'd have a day where we'd go out and we work on our tags, and I would teach them how to tag and how I used to do it. Sell it. It's the illusion that you tagged him. I don't want to keep my glove in there and take spikes to the glove. It's like,
Hmm.
nope, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to show it to the umpire. And as long as I get that glove down and it beats the runner, he's out.
Hmm.
Well, that's all changed now, too. You physically have to touch him. And, I think that adds a little bit of a risk for injury, actually, that you have to physically lay it on him. But that's the way it is. But now when you go, how are you going to teach a guy how to tag now? It's like you can't teach him to sell it. It's like, well, catch it, get it down there, and just hold it until you feel that guy's cleat run into you. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a different animal, and like I said, some of the changes are welcome, and it's part of moving on and life developing, and some of them are. It's like I kind of shake my head and go, I wish they wouldn't have changed that. But
Yeah. You're right. I agree. I totally agree.
well, Bucky Dent, three-time All-Star, two-time World Series champion. I appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun catching up with the Boone podcast, and thank you very much. And for all of you out there listening to the Boone podcast, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.